let's just go with this one first, because this is Greg Kelly's take on the whole thing. I had to shrink him down a little bit so we can fit him in the screen, because there's a lot of yummy goodness going on in this little frame right here, and I want you to be able to see the majority of it. Um, in this hilarity that is happening. Two major banks collapse within days. What the hell? And Greg Kelly is on the case. Ladies and gentlemen, I could spend some time explaining to you how overreach in the crypto markets and mismanagement by the uppers at the bank themselves, and them dealing with people who have lost a bunch of money in crypto and started drawing money out and weren't loaning money out because of those losses, mixed with their like bad treasury bets that they were they were apparently doing putting a put. Do you put a put? I think so. Putting a put on the US dollar. And apparently that didn't pay off because the dollar was supposed to crash, according to Peter Thiel and all those folks and these assholes, and it didn't. And they're like, fuck, we were betting against the dollar and betting on Bitcoin, and all of a sudden, so, but you know what? What do I know? I'm just saying stuff that I said when it happened that other people, the smart folks that everybody's like, oh, good point, are starting to say now. You're welcome.
So I never heard of this Silicon Valley Bank.
Thank God we have an expert on the scene. Yeah, but you don't need to, Greg. Spell it out. We get it. Like, just free ball it.
Until today, actually. Silicon Valley. I knew there was a Silicon Valley. I know there are banks.
Oh, shit. Oh, God. This is... I know there's such a thing as silicone. I've, had a couple of lucky tenders in the bed, and then I knew that there's valleys here and there. There's a song that has down in the valley, that kind of thing. I know there are banks, both, financial institutions and also, areas around beaches and other places that serve as embankments. I know that, but I've never realized at this point.
Stands to reason there's a Silicon Valley Bank.
Yes, it stands to reason. Yes, there are mountains and there are molehills and there are convenience stores. So welcome to Mountain Molehill Convenience Store. It stands to reason that there would be a hat turd pet store. That it stands to reason because of these three things exist. They can be put together in any order. In Greg's brain, it stands. I know there was a Silicon Valley and I know there's a bank, so it stands to reason there's a Silicon Valley Bank. No. We're watching a grown man amazed at the functionality of 2 + 2 and its relative consistency.
I'm not the biggest finance guy in the world, but I could.
Well, I disagree, sir.
I have told you months, if not years ago, that this bank had a big problem.
This bank I didn't even know existed and barely understood the individual words in its title. I could have told you years ago, before it was even made, that it was doomed to fail. And you know how I could tell? Because people like, hold on, where did this happening? Hold on. No, go away. Oops, look, that was a weird switch. My computer wanted to update something all of a sudden while I was castigating him. He could have told Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and any number of billionaires that I don't know about that bank. Yeah, why didn't you make a call, stupid? You could have made a small commission from the ones that listened after the other ones that didn't, after their competition ate shit, I guess.
Just by looking at one of its commercials.
As an innovator, you're all about creating something new. And that's
Oh, it's an Asian lady using a robot arm to make blocks. And black farmers? When does that happen?
journey we understand.
Oh, it's got windmills in it. That's it. If you could grow food here, but why not grow energy or both?
At SVB Private, we're focused on serving the innovation economy by collaborating with the people who drive it.
Black scientists. Look at it. Like, that's totally what ate him up about this. You know it. Like, when he's watching this, he's like, there are black farmers. There's no black scientists. Why is the Asian lady plagued with blocks? Windmills? Just the great thing is we're all learning what it's like when one of these kind of like normal corporate diversity area, focused commercials comes on. We are all getting to see just the internal panic attack that goes on inside Greg Kelly's empty dome. By the way, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, patreon.com/housebarks. Here we go.
We can help simplify your
Look, there's an Asian lady telling a couple of people that might be white or Mexican. We don't know, and I don't like it because I can't see their face. You're not allowed to see white people's faces in this, apparently. She's right. She's clearly talking them into putting a windmill in their apartment.
financial life by anticipating your personal and professional needs.
This is the soy boy and his hippie girlfriend riding their moped on their way to the vegan store. I hate these people.
That's it right there. Anticipating my professional needs as we look at some couple on vacation on a scooter. This is, the words don't match the imagery. They weren't paying attention to detail. I'm serious. I think this is a hint to just...
Shit. They were tipping you off. We're going to steal your money. We're being so blatant. Only suckers would get, like, no bank tries to entice people with images of happy people doing fun stuff.
How out to lunch they may have been. But I know you got to lift up the hood and really attack the financials of this institution. And let's do that.
Now, what do you mean, let's? You're cutting to CNBC, dummy. What do you mean, let's? Like, let us, you and I? Let's you and I watch someone else discuss the financials under the hood.
You know what it takes to find out what was wrong with Silicon Valley Bank. You needed to know it had a concentration of depositors. You needed to know that it had a duration risk in its portfolio. That duration risk was unhedged, and it had a series of problems inside of it that the supervisors, you both have acknowledged and are beside yourselves, couldn't see.
Okay, first of all, Greg is getting a nosebleed trying to comprehend this clip.
Duration risk, yes, of course. That was unhedged, and I don't know what he's talking about.
Jesus Christ. Why? When has that ever stopped you?
I'm not a finance guy. However, I again can see that this bank had big problems just on the surface. Take a look at their diversity, equity, and inclusion program.
That's what it was. Too many gays, too many black people, too many Mexicans or Hispanics or whatever those people are. Right, Greg? Too many. Look at them. They were letting people do stuff that were clearly not qualified. They needed some people like Greg in there who, while they don't know anything about anything, automatically know everything about everything. Jesus Christ. Month-long Pride campaign. It was Pride Month, dummy. Pride is a month. And what do you think they're doing? Not showing up for work that month? I got news for you, Greg. The month-long Pride campaign was all PR and graphics, and perhaps a team of people who were there walked in an AIDS walk or marched for something at one point wearing the t-shirts. That's it. Month long. Yeah, they take all of June off, and everyone is forced to be gay the entire month. And next year it'll be trans. It's going to be very expensive. Blog emphasizing mental health awareness for LGBTQ plus youth. a blog because they donated to the Trevor Project to make sure that they hit ESG points so that people like Peter Thiel could check that box off with the money that he coordinates that belongs to other people. Maybe like that. Safe space for coming out stories. Yeah, it should. Most businesses have a flogging tree where anybody who, if they find out you're gay, especially if you come out, if you do it in birth, they whip you. But only if that's your thing.
A month-long Pride campaign. Their blog emphasized mental health awareness for LGBTQ plus youth. Did any of them have accounts, I wonder? Safe.
No, they don't, Greg. And even more importantly, the people that have accounts at that bank certainly don't have children or interact with children or have friends that have children who are LGBTQ plus, or their kids don't have any friends like that at all. It's that kind of bank.
Safe spaces for coming out stories. How about a safe space for depositors' money? That's what we want from a bank. Wow, huh?
No. If you wanted a safe space for your depositors' money, you'd be at one of the big five. This is a regional bank that focuses on tech lending. Like, our motto around here, safety third. They've got it way down in the low teens.
They took this stuff very seriously, like a lot of corporate America, and it's ruining all of us.
Yes, so in his estimation, it's not that they were over leveraged and they bet against the dollar and bet on Bitcoin and fucked up and ran up a huge tab and didn't have it covered, and other people found out and there was a bank run by the billionaires that were parking their shit there. Wasn't that. It was get woke, go broke.
Especially them.
I think what really sets us apart when we think about diversity.
Oh, well, not only is he gay, but he's got a British accent and Jiminy Glick glasses. There's no hope for this guy at all.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion at SVB is our culture and our united desire to lead with empathy.
We proactively make it our mission at SVB to ensure that our clients, employees, and partners feel listened to and that their voices matter. So from funding underrepresented entrepreneurs to having multiple employee resource groups, I could not be prouder of working for a company like SVB.
It is all in what we do throughout the year, the space that...
Also, by the way, do you think in knowing that there's a Silicon Valley and there are banks in Greg Kelly's general knowledge base, that he knows where Silicon Valley is and the sheer number of people that fall under LGBT labels within that financial circle that are both involved in the tech sector and quite well to do? That this, while I have no reason to believe that these folks aren't completely earnest, from the position of the bank's board and the people who are investors in it, is more of a marketing campaign than some sort of, them making themselves the linchpin for LGBT rights in California.
We hold throughout the year for all of these groups, for everyone that feels...
This might be the stuff from the UK branch, or why they put this together, that particular group, which was all purchased for £1, like a week ago, a couple days ago, 5 days ago. And in Great Britain, the rules about inclusion and language are way tighter than they are in the United States. And to do business in both places, you have to play up to their standard.
That they have a space in one of these ERGs and talking about it all the time, not just for Pride Month.
You don't need an MBA to understand that this bank is totally out to lunch, like all of corporate America right now. This stuff is so fashionable. You gotta talk this language to even be eligible to do business, but it's ruined.
Yeah, no, you don't. Peter Thiel is a right-wing prick. He had a bunch of his money in that bank. He coordinated the stampede out of the bank. These guys, like Peter Thiel is so libertarian. He was going to try and buy an oil rig and declare it a country so he could park his money there in servers that he runs off of the remnant oil in underneath the goddamn thing.
The business.
Till he realized that he'd have to partner with a bigger country. Otherwise, he'd get, anybody rolled up in a boat in international waters could invade his country very easily and take its resources in the world's smallest resource war.
All right. Now, I do want to take a stab, though, at the financials. We got to lift up the hood and get in there and really.
Yes, right. For the second time, let's take a look at the financials. And let's see if they were big gay financials. Maybe it was just that the financials were too gay, Greg. Maybe you're right. Maybe these were trans financials and they were transitioning from money to debt. How about that? Is that how we're going to blame the equity and inclusion and diversity efforts on behalf of a regional bank for the runners of the bank, the actual supervisors of the bank being fuck-ups?
Really try to understand what's going on.
I think the greatest
Again, cutting to somebody else talking about it on CNBC.
weakness in all this is the use of so-called risk-weighted capital measures rather than equity capital to assets, which takes in all their assets.
Okay. Risk-weighted capital measures instead of the equity capital-based. Maybe you do need an MBA to understand this guy. All right. I don't. But
I don't understand anything that was said. I don't understand that the difference between having cash and physical assets as the basis for the bank's wealth versus risk-related ones like gambling on crypto and investments in, I don't know, startups that are going to pay off eventually, and you're putting that on your sheet as this, we believe in this tech startup that these guys invested in. We have a piece of that, and we think it's going to go, which it may or very well may not. And statistically, it will not on average.
I have studied this, and I talked to some people in the game, and I think it comes down to this. All right,
Okay, here we go. Settle it for me, big boy.
Boil it down to our tech bro out there in Silicon Valley. All right, those guys want to change the world. They're always trying to invent the next Twitter, the next Facebook, and
they're obviously gay and shop at H&M, and they've foregone having a phone to walk around with a full laptop in their hand at all times because they can't even make regular phone calls. Jesus.
Every now and then, one of them comes up with a very interesting idea.
Oh my God, this is going to be painful. This is as bad or worse than those like lists of words that he would put up where every letter meant a failure of the Biden administration. Remember that shit that he gave up on? He was trying to sell those things. I didn't even remember what the words were after all this. Like I don't care.
All right, good for him. Gets a big idea, and then he goes around to the venture capital people and
with no idea. After he's lost the idea, where'd the idea go? It's probably in his
venture capital people. If they like that idea, they throw money at him. Sometimes a lot of money. So
what does this have to do with the bank?
He or she can get that startup up and running. Now, he's got to find a place for all that money, okay? So Silicon Valley Bank has really advertised itself as the place to go for the tech industry.
Yeah, but you don't think it would have he would have been scared off by the ads with all the black scientists and farmers and the Asian lady who is Asian splaining to the white couple about why they need a windmill in their apartment, Greg? I guess that's the thing about tech bros or something. Maybe it's, maybe it's the rate of autism in there. Is that what you're saying? That they just couldn't, they see that ad and they just can't see it. They don't have the keen insights you do.
And it
son of a bitch
works out. What does the bank do? They take that money and, well, they hold on to it. They also do what banks do. They make loans and they charge interest. That's how they make money. And they also did something that apparently is done, but this might have led to its downfall. It invested
Something that apparently is done. Well, if it wasn't done, it couldn't have led to its downfall or its success, one would think. It has to be done to have a good result or a bad result.
in securities, government securities, and a lot of those were at a crummy rate, and a lot of them were very long term, 5 years, 10 years. Now, that apparently is not a good thing. It's
Apparently, yeah, 5-year, 10-year yield bonds, like nobody gets those things. I mean, it's not like there's an entire repo market and a substructure of the financial industry that's buying and selling securities and bonds and trading them between each other. And what's really the difference anyways? Like there's just no future in it. I see no future in bonds. It's not like states are going to issue them or companies are going to issue them or even banks are going to issue them ever. So I don't know. I just like it sounds like something that gets you out of jail, you know.
better that you can liquidate this thing overnight. These things.
Yes, you should only have assets that can be liquidated overnight, because nothing says trust to a potential customer of a bank like the banker there saying, and don't worry about it. We don't think we're going to be here in 24 hours. So anything that we have, we can liquidate. We don't have any long-term shit, because the bank, honest to God, the shelf life on this fucking joint is terrible.
Things overnight if you have to. So a couple of other things.
Which is nuts. Like, reminder, these assholes, like, Greg is one of these people who's like, you know, why don't we run this country like a family does around the dinner table? Now tell me how every family has a cut and run policy like Black Widow's parents in the Black Widow movie.
Going on after COVID, the money from the venture capitalist community, that started to slow down. All right, so there weren't as many people getting the money from the VC.
So they're all dead. All their money is gone. All the venture capitalists lost their money. They've got no money to give out. So what was the money that was sitting in the bank that wasn't going to these companies that they took out of that bank? Never mind. I'm going to give the guy a note.
And they weren't going to the bank with their money. It just
see, that's all right. They could have. They were just keeping it in a thing, like on a. Okay.
Just got a little bit cold. All right. Does that make sense? So.
No.
Far. Now the.
And by the way, that's not at all how it worked in terms of how the bank is operating. Yes. Money flowed freely from venture capitalists and stuff because they had nowhere else to put their money except tech startups. And they're like, everybody's just at home. These assholes have nothing to do with code. So let's get at it right now. But the banks making loans to it, when you had next to zero interest rate, these guys were loaning money out to startups. SVB in particular was big on loaning money out to startups. And it was backed oftentimes by the idea that some of their other insurers, which acted as kind of like tacit shareholders in the bank, to like, they would use it like if they wanted to give $1 million to a startup, but they knew the startup needed $2 million, they would put $1 million into SVB Bank and go, hey, I'm backing these guys. They're cool. And so they would have a draw on the equity in that account, the startup would, and essentially, and the bank would loan them $1 million on top of that. So it kind of matched funds. I mean, it's obviously a lot more complicated than that, but that was essentially how the bank's scheme worked in terms of where they were loaning money out. Once the cost of loaning money out, it would take a venture capitalist who's doing that scheme, they'd have to put in $1.2 million to get $1 million out of the bank to them, right? And so they're less apt to do it unless they think it's a sure thing. And there are very few sure things out there, so the funding starts to slow down because the bank isn't lending as much money, not the venture capitalists.
Tech guy.
That a lot of these assholes made a ton of money during the COVID downturn because everybody turned to their tech devices. We all bought webcams and new phones and got new apps, and we're communicating digitally using digital technology more than ever. All the digital delivery services and travel services and all that kind of stuff like Uber and whatnot, those all transferred over to bringing food to everybody's house. They made money during this time. All those initial investors, they had it to dole out. The banks, however, they could then, but now interest rates are close to 5-6%, and they want to know that there's going to be a return.
Guys started to withdraw their money. Now, what precipitated that?
No.
About a week ago, they had to announce, the bank, that they had lost $2.2 billion on some of those government-backed securities that they bought. All right? That was a big, worrisome data point. That
Yes, a big thank you very much. Very technical. A lot of mumbo jumbo today, kids. I'm very sorry. It was a very big data point. $75 billion sale. They lost $2.2 billion on it. And the response, they I suppose still had, of that primary investment, around $72 billion of that initial investment in it. But I'm sorry, I interrupted with reality. Let Greg explain to us how it's the fact that they were government securities and nobody wants those anymore because China.
Peter Thiel noticed, and
did he?
Started telling all of his smart friends in Silicon Valley, I don't know about this bank anymore. They just lost $2 billion on government securities. And then the word went out and everybody got nervous. All the tech bros were taking their money out of the bank. So everybody kind of panics, shows up at the bank looking for their money. And well, you've seen it on the news at this point. However.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing out, Greg, that you are not the news.
In all likelihood, there's not
sometimes a little truth squeaks out.
Enough money to pay everybody, at least not initially. A bank is only
at least not initially
required to keep 10% of cash in reserve.
Oh my God, what kind of system is this? Dear God, when did this all happen? Okay, come on.
And my understanding is, well, it's only 10%. You can figure it out for yourself. That's not going to satisfy all the depositors. Now,
yeah, because nobody takes out 100% of what a bank has in reserves in cash when a bank has $200+ billion in holdings, especially when they are a small regional bank leveraged to companies more than individual customers. Oh, God.
The federal government is saying that everybody will be paid at no cost to the taxpayer.
Right.
No losses associated with the resolution of Silicon Valley Bank or Signature Bank will be borne by the taxpayer.
Now, I don't know how that... is this where he tries to say the FDIC is going to kick money out, not realizing that the FDIC is an insurance program that banks pay into? It's insurance. They all have to have it. Now, it's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, but the Fed doesn't fill it with money. The banks do. To be a bank and take on accounts, you have to put a deposit down.
The Wall Street guys I'm talking to don't necessarily buy that, but this is what...
Oh, yeah? Which ones are they? The Wall Street guys? The other ones on the bus?
Joe Biden himself is saying.
This is an important point. No losses will be borne by the taxpayers. Let me repeat that. No losses will be borne by the taxpayers. Instead, the money will come from the fees that banks pay into the Deposit Insurance Fund.
That would be the FDIC.
Or they'll just print more money.
No, they won't. Money printer go brrr.
And inflationary pressures will only increase. And oh, by the way,
inflationary pressures will only oh, fuck me. I'm sorry. I'm not, I understood there would be no math. Wow. Greg, I appreciate you announcing how dumb you are at the beginning, but you do that oftentimes as a way of caveat against something that you may say later that actually makes sense. It's just getting worse.
Inflation probably led to this in large part.
Inflation led to this. the Fed trying to tame inflation, maybe. But isn't that what you want?
Joe Biden, of course, has blame for you know who, our favorite guy.
Your favorite guy. Himmler? No.
During the Obama-Biden administration, we put in place tough requirements on banks like Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, including the Dodd-Frank law to make sure that the crisis we saw in 2008 would not happen again. Unfortunately, the last administration rolled back some of these requirements. I'm going to ask Congress and the banking regulators to strengthen the rules for banks to make it less likely this kind of bank failure would happen again.
Unfortunately, the last administration did something, so why didn't you come?
Unfortunately, the last administration did something. So, no, they undid something, dum-dum.
Come in on day 1, day 5, day 500 and fix that. Why didn't you do that? Because this is a cheap excuse. It's blame the other guy.
So fixing it now, because it wasn't an issue, really. I mean, it was definitely bad, but it hadn't struck anybody yet. And there's been a lot of things going on. I don't know if you remember the COVID crisis and the like. There were a lot of things just getting that stuff passed. Remember when Dore and all the Justice Dems were suggesting that the squad hold the infrastructure bill hostage? And remember that? That they had the parallel bill, and they were going to hold off their vote to force the two bills to be put together. And even though they didn't have the votes and it would die in the Senate anyways, they just wanted to make that happen, to call out people who get called out every day anyways. Remember that whole thing that was like 4 fucking months? Yeah, without that, on our side alone, we could have started addressing these things.
You mentioned Dodd-Frank. That's for Chris Dodd, the senator from Connecticut at the time, and Barney Frank, House member from Massachusetts. Remember that guy? He shows up on Newsmax every now and then.
Does he?
Curiously, Barney Frank was actually on the board of Signature Bank, which just went down. The guy who wrote the Dodd-Frank regulations on his own bank couldn't save that one from failure. It's interesting. Probably not his fault.
Maybe it is. You know what? He's there. The bill that he created was the parts that would have kept Signature from going under were struck down, and he was working there to before they were taken out. Oh God,
who knows? I don't know.
You're right. You don't know. But when has that ever stopped you from saying it anyways? Greg, just say it. Why are you such a wuss right now?
Don't know. All right, back to the bank, the Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah, back to that.
And for the rest of us, I don't know. I mean, apparently, if you have $250,000 plus, you're not getting that back. And a lot of people don't think you should get that back. I feel a little bit funny about that, but this FDIC insurance that's been...
Oh my God, I feel a little bit funny about this. Whew. Honestly, what are we seeing here? We're seeing the standard Republican mindset caught in their own trap of laissez-faire economics, and banks and bankers and big money financial interests actually do know what to do with it. And the poor plebes like you and me, we don't know shit about this kind of stuff, nor should we. And Greg doesn't understand it, but smarter people than him run this. He talks to the big names on Wall Street, and they think it was something else, and it probably wasn't this thing, and I don't even know if it was that rule or blah, blah, blah. God damn. This is a real issue for them, because they want banks to just run amok, unencumbered by government regulation. They want a Wild West setup. This is that virulent strain of the libertarian virus that lives on in that Ron Paul gave the libertarian syphilis to a giant chunk of the Republican Party, and they still have this idea that that is akin to, there was a philosophical idea, folks, that human beings are at their root good or evil. And that is the managing factor for different groups of people. People who are incredibly religious often feel that while babies are innocent, once a kid is born, once there's a person, they are intrinsically evil, burdened with original sin, or by nature, we are beasts at root, and we must be forcibly trained, spare the rod, spoil the child, into being, civilized people. And without that, we will be monsters. And there's another side, which is sort of the hyper hippie side that Russell Brand sells, which is the idea that nobody needs any rules at all. We're all born these kind of like toddlers hugging toddlers. There are never any problems. People themselves are inherently good, and they are taught any of the awful they become, instead of recognizing sometimes they can get their needs met or feel better by making people feel worse, which is a naturally occurring state. So both are completely childish, very black and white, and functionally useless in terms of dealing with real human beings. Greg and the libertarians of the right have that idea, that inherent goodness idea, but only about businesses. They believe that a business is naturally a good endeavor because you are, in theory, building it to be profitable, and therefore it is a net gain for the world because it doesn't exist. There's a hole where it's the idea of does the world exist already and you build on top of it, or is the world a giant hole that you're trying to fill? And these guys operate on the idea that the world is a giant hole they're trying to fill. And the hippies believe that the world is completely full and you build on top of it, and that's the level of how much or at all becomes the debate. It's the same mistake though. It's just simply an inversion of the idea, but both are that they trust in some sort of disembodied version of reality as opposed to pay attention to what humans do every day and set some baseline rules, because people aren't going to naturally be good just because they feel like it. Because in that case, the next day they could feel like being awful.
Around for a long time. It's part of the deal, which isn't that bad. Depends where you're coming from, but take a look at this.
Since 1933, the FDIC seal at banks and financial institutions has signified trust and stability to millions of Americans.
Yeah, this is true. As a matter of fact, wherever Greg has his money, whatever money he saves on bus fare, wherever it is, wherever it's pocketed away, I guarantee he just takes for granted that 100 grand or 250 grand of it is FDIC insured.
FDIC deposit insurance is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Since the FDIC's inception, no depositor has ever lost a penny of FDIC-insured deposits. FDIC deposit insurance enables consumers...
Jesus Christ, no wonder he made his own cartoon, because he watched this cartoon and he's like, I think I get it.
...to confidently deposit their money at FDIC-insured banks across the United States. And in the unlikely event of a bank failure, guarantees they can get their insured deposits back promptly.
Their insured deposits, which is up to the limit that the insurance will cover.
All right. No.
All right. I don't know. It's a cartoon. I like cartoons.
No depositor has ever lost a penny of FDI insured money.
FDI insured, that's different. That's the federal derpo of investigation.
That's a pretty good deal. Now, for the people online there at Silicon Valley Bank, apparently 90% of these accounts were in excess of $250,000. So we'll see what happens, okay?
Again, I'm caught in a trap. I can't walk out because I don't do math, baby. Greg has a real conundrum right here. It's a difficult spot he's in because he likes rich people. They're the worthwhile people. They're the only ones that should be allowed to vote. These are the smart people. And here they are standing out in California in front of a bank like a bunch of assholes. And he doesn't know how to take it. He's very upset.
This is part of American history, though. It happens from time to time. These a run on the bank.
Jesus Christ! I don't even think that was his edit. They just bailed on him. Newsmax was like, cut. I just want to believe that wasn't even a clip from his show. By the way, I don't cut these clips. They come from the show. They post these. That's their edit. I just want to believe that somebody at Newsmax went, God damn it, and just hit. Can you Newsmax just said, shut the fuck up. It would not surprise me if Newsmax, as a tech industry startup, because that's what it is. It's not a broadcast. They don't have satellites all over the friggin' country. They effectively were an internet-based news service, and then they moved to some cable by buying their way onto it. That's pretty big tech compared to what I got here with my little setup. I would consider Newsmax big tech. And it would not surprise me if Newsmax had some of their money in that bank. Not at all. Which is, for the record, hilarious.